Oh, hello and welcome to Wednesday Wellness. It says I'm Jackie Shepherd. Most of you guys know that's not true. Sitting in for Jackie today, I'm Renee Parker. And while Jackie is working with our fabulous company this week, doing some things, she asked me if I would sit in and give you guys a peek into my health, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I hope you can see the full screen and I'm going to go ahead and share. Today, I'm going to be talking about it's a couple of tests that I took, tests that you can take, and this is all about toxins. Today's talk is about toxins, and we're going to be taking a deep dive into my own health record, some tests that I had to maybe help you understand a little bit more about the role toxins play in our health. I want to show you before I get started, I want to show you a couple of places where I got my information and some more at the end, but I just want you to know I didn't dot every I on this, so I'm sending this to you. This was one of the sites that I got my information from. We're familiar with the National Institutes of Health. We're familiar with PubMed. Well, they also have a National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. Hard to say, but there's a lot of information on this site about toxins. And you can see all down the list here from arsenic to BPAs. That's something we're going to be talking about, all the way down to essential oils and flame retardants. I also went to the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics because quite a few of these statistics that I came across came from this website. So it's a website where anyone can participate in national health tests. And if you want, you can take a look at more about what they do. But when you see some of the stats and some of the things I'm talking about today, they came from the National Center for Health Statistics, part of the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia. So let's actually talk about toxins. I'm going to share screen with you here. Oh, that is my hope. Okay. So most of us are aware that there are toxins in the environment. So I'm going to start this. So what if something invisible? What if something you could never see was making you sick? Well, it turns out that 1 in 6 deaths globally are linked to pollution and not necessarily big city pollution. We'll get into that. A recent study was done, and in that study, 100% of the participants, 100% had microplastics in their blood. 100%. And as it turns out, 90% of American bodies have forever chemicals in them, and we're going to be talking a little more about what those are. So, very quickly, what is a toxin? What exactly, if you had to define it, it's pretty simple. It's anything, any substance that interferes with our normal body function. Or, like, Renee, that could take in a whole lot. And it does. It absolutely does. There are ways that we get toxins into our body. We can inhale it through air, smoke, and through dust. We swallow it from the food we're eating, from what's in our water, even the packaging that our food and water are in. And that's called bioaccumulation. Those things build up over time. But once toxins are in there, your gut can actually create more and suffer something called oxidative stress, cell damage from toxins. So I ran a couple of tests a year or so ago, two different urine tests, and I'm going to show you some of my test results because I'm a health conscious person. You probably are as well. So this is just an average everyday exposure to toxins. I'm not going to show you the entire 28-page document from the tox profile, but I am going to show you the top results that I had to be concerned about. So we're going to look at toxins, and then we're going to kind of take a subset of mold, mycotox, but that'll come in a minute. Let's first look at my results from toxins. These are the toxins that were in my body that Mosaic Diagnostics said, warning. I was above the 95th percentile for phthalate and for volatile organic compounds. And if you see that, the first one, phthalates, it's almost hard to say. It's called the everywhere chemical. It's in everything from vinyl flooring to personal care products to food packaging, and it's linked to endocrine disruption, which I've had, neurological effects, which I've had, cancer, which I've had, and more. And then with the ethylene oxide and the vinyl chloride, I'm asking myself, the question becomes, where in my world are these toxins getting into my system? Seeing this really begins to help anyone understand that um, toxins, even if we're trying to live a healthy lifestyle, could be causing problems. Like the moderate findings, styrene was in the moderate range. And I'm like, styrene, that's styrofoam. Well, I no longer put hot drinks in a styrofoam cup because I've learned that it leaches the styrofoam into the drink that I'm drinking. So, my gosh, where did I get styrofoam to that level? Well, I was prone to um, bringing in leftovers from the restaurant and putting them in the fridge and then taking them out of the fridge, leaving them in the package and just heating them up, not even thinking about the styrene in those in that packaging that could be causing the buildup. And it's also in building materials. If you've ever had your house wrapped for, especially some of the newer materials for insulation, there's a lot of styrene in those as well. And then there was bromopropane. What in the world? I don't even do dry cleaning, and that's the number one place you'll find it. But you also find it in adhesives, and you'll also find it in the sheet metal industry. And there is a sheet metal plant about 1,000 yards from my house. Can't see it, don't ever hear anything. It's in trees around it. You don't even think about it, but obviously it thinks about me. Percolates, now we're familiar with that because Jackie Shepard has talked about the perchlorates, I should say, that are in the Colorado River. And those come from it's jet fuel and other things, but somehow it has made its way into my world as well. And oxybenzone, that was one that really threw me. Sunscreen. I use a mineral sunscreen. How am I getting this high amount of oxybenzone, this endocrine disruptor in my body? And I had to think about it for a minute. I used a foundation for my makeup that had a little sunscreen in it, and it was over time accumulated in my system to the point that it had a moderate finding when I did the mosaic test. That's crazy. We don't even think about the ways that our bodies are being poisoned just a little bit every day. So when you've got all of this in my system, let's look a little bit more about the actual effects that it could have been having on my body and these could be having in yours. Now, I'm not saying that all of these results are going to be your results, but I think you understand I needed a point of reference to show you guys. And so we're using my actual test results. So, toxins in the brain are one of the first areas that I wanted to look at. Alzheimer's. They've determined that lead, mercury, air pollution, and pesticides all disrupt the protein folding, causing chronic brain inflammation, leading to plaque buildup, leading to the neurons dying, leading to what we know as Alzheimer's. The same goes for Parkinson's, including heavy metals and pesticides, dry cleaning solvents, all have been shown to kill the dopamine producing neurons in the brain, causing progressive motor dysfunction. ALS, again, we're looking at heavy metals, we're looking at pesticides, and y'all, algae blooms. Algae blooms. If you're around a large body or even a small body of water, algae can bloom in that water. You've seen it maybe in your own bird bath. Usually that's not bad algae in the bird bath. It's just green or sometimes pink. But the algae blooms that leach or let out off gas toxins have been known to cause be the basis for Lou Gehrig's disease. So what was going on in my report that could potentially cause mental problems? Something called the bromopropane that I mentioned, styrene as well is linked to memory loss, trouble concentrating, and impaired motor function. These are tests in my own world, y'all. So let's look at the liver. The liver is the body's filter, and it receives the highest burden of toxins because everything has to go through the liver. And we're going to talk a little bit about the the liver in toxins in the actual way that it helps us get rid of toxins in a minute. But things that really affect the liver, PFAS, PFAS, can actually interfere. So these toxins can actually make you fat. They can interfere with metabolism in your liver, can cause fatty liver disease. And now teenagers, from that report that I found that I showed you, have double the PFAS concentration. Those that do have a more than 80% greater risk for obesity and fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease as teenagers. Microplastics are another one that the liver has a really hard time with, found inside human liver tissue. Micro pieces of plastic, tiny little pieces of plastic, have been found inside the human liver. They cause oxidative stress, inflammation, and literally DNA damage. My results: vinyl chloride, directly known to cause liver cancer. The IARC is part of the World Health Organization, and they go around the world looking at toxins that cause things like this. And this is a class 1, group 1 toxin. In fact, some countries, some of these microplastics that we allow are not allowed in other countries based on this information. So let's move over to the heart. How do toxins affect the heart? I found this very interesting, that air pollution is the second most common stroke risk factor after high blood pressure. And not just that nasty city smoke. Believe it or not, smoke from wildfires can cause strokes. When there are wildfires in an area, like where I live, the instance of strokes goes up, and here's why. People inhale the toxins, they enter the lungs, which means they're absorbed directly into the bloodstream. Then there's systemic inflammation, and then there's platelet activation because of that. Those toxins in the body make the platelets clump together, makes it more prone to clotting. Then there's vessel damage. The lining of the blood vessels going to the brain and the heart become irritated, restricting blood flow. And then you've got a stroke from air pollution, from a wildfire. The next one's BPA and cadmium. BPA is in plastics. They can disrupt your heart rate. They can damage your arteries. Now, cadmium is listed here, but I'll tell you, unless you do a lot of work with rechargeable batteries, which are nickel cadmium batteries, or you're mining for copper, which cadmium is a byproduct, or you're working in a maybe a data center or someplace like that, you're not going to come across cadmium very often. However, BPAs are bisphenol A. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. BPAs are some of what leaches. It's a compound that leaches out of plastic into your water, if you have a hot water, if you have a water bottle, into your food, if you're microwaving it to warm it up. And then there are microplastics. So the microplastics are actually little bits of the actual plastic in your water bottle, or in that plastic container that is holding your food in the refrigerator, um, little bits of plastic, tiny amounts, actually slough off and get into your arteries, creating heart attacks, strokes, or even death. So look at these strawberries here. The strawberries were picked out in the sun, immediately put into these plastic bins. You're at the farmer's market or maybe even your grocery store, they come to you like that this time of year, and what's in there looks very healthy. But because they're sitting in plastic, they went from the field directly into these little plastic bins. So the sun caused the BPAs to leach into the strawberries. And because they're sitting in plastic, just the moving of the strawberries around inside a plastic container puts microplastics onto the strawberries and into your system. What were my results? Well, I had high phthalates, which is definitely linked to cardiovascular disease, mortality, and then I had butadiene and the styrene, which are also both linked to cardiovascular risk. Now we're going to move from toxins on into mycotoxins, mold toxins. Molds are that mold toxin is um, a lot of the country, a lot of the world now has woken up to how bad mold can be. And not all mold is bad mold. And just because I had a certain high mold doesn't mean you will. And oddly enough, I didn't have any black mold in my system, but I did have a very high amount of mycophenolic acid. What in the world? It is an offshoot, an off-gassing from penicillin mold. So you make penicillin, it off-gasses into this MPA, and it's actually being used as an immunosuppressant in drugs right now. So simply taking certain foods like my favorite gorgonzola cheese and baked goods, and that dough that you picked up to make pizza with, or your drop biscuit, as I call it, dough, to make little biscuits, the Pillsbury Doughboy. Those things are strong forces, are strong holders of penicillin mold. You may not see it, but I'm sure you've all grown what we've grown science experiments in the refrigerator. Chances are it was penicillin mold. And most people think, oh, well, it's penicillin, it can't be bad for you. But at very high levels like this, it can impair antibody function. This can be a cause leading to autoimmune disease. And I do have autoimmune issues. All the others, I was normal, or there wasn't even a hint of it in my system. And where did I get this penicillin mold other than my refrigerator? Because no one actually eats bread that's turned colors. I hope not. But it's also caused by water damaged buildings, which our home was. After Helene, water was able to get without us knowing in between the outside of the house and the inside of the house. It was literally draining in between. And over time, penicillin, a mold built up on the inside of the wall. And we simply noticed the wall getting kind of funny looking. It never looked um, black or green or any color, but we realized there'd been damage. And when the wall was taken down that was damaged, that penicillin that had been kind of leaching out, or that acid, I should say, had been kind of off-gassing from the penicillin mold inside the wall, was suddenly bare and open and went through the whole house. Went through the whole house. So penicillin mold is typically, we think penicillin, we think, well, that's not too bad, but too much of a good thing can actually cause autoimmune issues, or it did for me. So there you go. This MPA is being used as a pharmaceutical immunosuppressant. So people that have problems with, what am I trying to think of? Psoriasis or eczema, a lot of times they'll take immunosuppressants, and quite often the product has or contains this MPA in it. So how do we defend ourselves? Let me go back one. Let me see if I could go back one more. Go back. It's not wanting to go back. There it is. So this was my actual picture, my health picture based on two tests, a myotox test, a toxins test, and then a mold toxins test. And it didn't look pretty, right? I had endocrine disruptors. I had potential kidney damage going on, cancer connections, thyroid and liver, all living inside what I thought was a relatively healthy human. Some were high, and these were just the mids, the highs and the mids in my picture. So, what do we do? How in the world, with all of this going on, do we defend ourselves? Well, a lot of us know exactly what to do, and I'm going to fill you in. Filter your water. Filter your water. Get away from plasticky water. Get away from water bottles at the store. My husband and I were traveling recently, and I wish I'd taken a picture. There, just crates of bottled water had been delivered to this little grocery store, this little minute market, and they were all sitting outside facing the west, and the western afternoon sun was penetrating every one of those water bottles. Now, I would assume that then they would bring the water inside and put it in the refrigerator. Too late, damage done, right? By the time I would have pulled water, a bottled water out of the refrigerator, the refrigerated section of this little store, these PFAs and others would have already been in my water. It would have leached in, and then just moving the bottle around would have caused microplastics in the water. You feeling healthier? Drink more water, right? Well, drink more filtered tap water. Um, or if you can find a deep well, if someone has a well, a deep well versus city water. And I say that because city water is mostly dead water because of all of the other chemicals that are put in it. I can't say this enough. Don't heat your food in plastic. Don't heat your food. After seeing the results from these tests, which by the way are about a year old now, we switched completely to glass containers. Yes, they do have plastic lids, but we take those off when and none of the food ever touches the plastic lid. It's really difficult to find any kind of storage container that's 100% glass, or the old glass and cork. That would be nice. But don't heat your food in plastic. That's a great way to get them out of your system. Switch to mineral sunscreens, which I had done, but my foundation still had oxybenzone at a substantial level. Look at what you're putting on your skin, because they'll tell you, oh, it doesn't go through. We know better. And my test results proved that over time, I'd been using that particular product for about 5 years. It had reached a substantial level in my body. So if someone says, oh, just putting it on your skin doesn't cause damage, well, maybe one time, no. But over time, absolutely. Do what we didn't do. Address water damage quickly. We didn't know. We didn't know there was a leak between the the outside of the house and the inside of the house. And it was pretty much trying to be absorbed by the insulation that was there. But it got overwhelmed, and those linger long after any visible mold is gone. Let me tell you, that is the truth. Choose organic for the Dirty Dozen. What is the Dirty Dozen? The Environmental Working Group, EWG, every year comes out with the top 12 vegetables and fruits that are driven with pesticides, that have pesticides in them. For the first time, I think this year, blackberries made the list. So if you go to ewg.org, you can find the Dirty Dozen. It actually has more than 12, but based on 1 to I think 40 in the worst foods you can eat if you don't eat organic. And then it also talks about this year's best foods, and spinach this year tops the list for best foods in that Dirty Dozen. It used to be one of the dirty dozen, but thanks to environmental control and awareness, spinach this year is number one on the clean list for the dirty dozen. Sweat, sweat, perspiration helps eliminate toxins from your body, but be careful what you're sweating in because so much of our clothing these days, especially if it has a stretch quality to it, like your yoga wear, your the comfortable pants that you have on that have a little stretch to them, have plastic in them. That stretch material is plastic. It breaks down, and the movement of it, warming it up on your skin and it moving around on your skin, puts plastics in your skin. So sweat, but sweat in cotton, y'all. Come back to cotton. And then push for policy change. Find out in your area what's going on with your drinking water. You can actually help push for change in what's in your drinking water. And you can also easily find ways to ask for more testing and more transparency in your local drinking water. So there's one more thing that we can do, something really big that we can do to defend ourselves, to remove toxins out of our system. And that is upregulating glutathione. It is the master toxin for detox. It is also the most abundant antioxidant in the human body. Every cell makes it. And here's what happens when you can get more glutathione in your body. This is the detox system, you guys. So we talked about the liver. The important part of the liver in detoxing is that the liver enzymes actually kind of begin to try to break down toxins. They do it to a point, and when toxins are broken down, they have a new name called reactive intermediates. Don't know why, but that's what they're called. And they're sometimes actually temporarily more toxic than they were in their normal toxin state. But then glutathione comes in and saves the day. Glutathione will bind to these broken down toxins. They're broken down into the reactive intermediates, and glutathione literally doesn't mess with it, binds itself to the toxin. It's called conjugation, and this binding literally to the toxin neutralizes the toxin. And it allows that toxin then to be removed by the body through sweat, through urine or bile, but the glutathione now leaves the body with the toxin. It gives itself up, binds to that toxin, and gets rid of it for us. But there's a problem with that. In detoxing, toxins that are in our system can deplete our glutathione faster than we can naturally make it. That's where we get toxin overload. It's not that we just quit making glutathione, but the ability for the glutathione to do its job is overwhelmed by contemporary life. We just have more toxins than we have glutathione. So my results, according to the Mosaic report, said that there were 3 toxins that were specifically tied to this conjugation, getting this detox by glutathione alone. This means that my glutathione stores are under constant demand. What else depletes glutathione? So while it's trying to do its job, getting rid of the toxins, and as you saw, my toxic load was high. I had exposure to mold, other things that would affect your liver also affect your body's glutathione. Chronic stress, poor sleep, drinking alcohol, using acetaminophen. This has been a lot. It's been in the news lately. And here's where the acetamin piece of it comes in with toxins. The more acetaminophen you take, the less glutathione you make, the harder it is for your body to get rid of the toxins. On the good side, this is where it gets good. What can actually help you build your glutathione back up? Nutrition, that's a couple of ways. Whey protein is really good because it's cysteine rich. Sulfur rich foods are also pretty good at restoring glutathione. That's garlic and onions and broccoli and Brussels sprouts. However, if you are sensitive to something called FODMAPs, all of those are high in FODMAP production, which means it might not be a good idea. It might really upset your stomach to eat these sulfur-rich foods. So you kind of have to leave them out of your diet. There's supplementation as well. Selenium is good for it, B vitamins, and you can take liposomal glutathione, but there's also some trouble with that. Glutathione molecules are big, and your stomach, even if you're taking a liposomal version, which typically breaks apart before it gets to your stomach, glutathione is so large that even this version of it doesn't do well, doesn't stay in your body long, and you're prone to just simply digesting it and it not doing the job. You can take something called NAC, N-acetylcysteine, which is a little upstream from the glutathione production. It's always necessary for making glutathione, but there's one other thing that's even more upstream than that, and that's NRF2 pathway activation. When you can activate your NRF2 pathway, it, according to PubMed, according to the National Institutes of Health, NRF2, when it's activated, boosts glutathione levels by upregulating the specific genes, talking like all the way upstream, right? It upregulates the genes that are responsible for making the glutathione in the amount that your body needs. So here are the key resources from today. These are the different websites that I went to learn more about it. If you're interested in these detox or these toxin profiles, these tests that I took, yeah, they are not inexpensive. They are quite expensive. And you have to get them through a provider. I can help you with that. So I took the detox test, the tox detect profile. Let me get the words out. I saved up and did that one first. And then I saved up again to do the mold. And if either of those are interested or of interest to you, reach out to me. You can reach me by Facebook Messenger, or you can find me through our Signal group. Thank you. And now we will go to questions and answers.